Alright, this week I'm building a slightly oversized, over-the-top, lean-to structure to house the solar stuff in. This is where the solar kit lives at the moment, and it's a good storage place in some ways, as in it's out of the way, no one can really see it from the road, it's not very nickable, I suppose. The bad thing about it is that each time power is required from something, the inverter switches on and a small fan in the inverter whirs away, and our bed's the other side of that. So it's not ideal when the fridge kicks on at night. So this is where I've got to so far. I dug some enormous holes, chucked some big posts in them, filled them full of concrete. They are pretty high, and you might be thinking, why have you built something so big for a fairly small amount of solar equipment? The problem with this off-grid living thing is you keep needing little boxes to store things in. Case in point, there's a little box that I used to put the pump in. And one, it's not very efficient building like a series of little boxes. And two, they look ugly. So I didn't want to build a small solar box. Instead, I thought, why not build a much larger structure and then use it for a whole load of utilities? So I could put the solar in there, potentially a washing machine, potentially a freezer, and who knows what.
Now the posts are concreted in, I need to cut out a notch for the beams to sit on. I tend to set rules for myself, rules to keep me out of trouble. One of them is no using chainsaws up ladders. These, however, are not ladders, they're trestles. I borrowed them off a mate and they've been great for working on the bus with. They are way heavier and way more stable than a regular ladder, and are designed to have a board between them. I have absolutely no plans for this build, not even a rough sketch. I love building like this. It's just like being a kid playing with Lego. There is something simple and intuitive about the whole process. Building by yourself can sometimes be a bit tricky. This would be dangerous if I was just using a ladder, as if I dropped the 6x2 it would easily knock me off. The trestles are again great here. I can rest the wood on the trestles before clamping one side to the post. That's the other thing you need if you're going to build alone, clamps. It's like having an extra pair of hands. I'm using a ground screw here. I've used ground screws a lot and I really like them. As far as cost goes, they work out similar to a metre of 4x4 and a couple of bags of cement. I think that's pretty reasonable. But the real advantage comes in the amount of time it saves. I can get these things into the ground a lot faster than I can dig a hole and then set out the post correctly, let alone pour the concrete and wait for it to cure. There's definitely a slight knack to it. In the beginning stages, these things can be moved in every direction and are tricky to drive in straight. Once they are a foot or so into the ground, it becomes almost impossible to change their trajectory, and you just have to hope that you set them straight while you had the chance. Maybe they embody human life. At the beginning, we're all possibility and can veer off in any direction. And as life goes on, we gradually become the people we are. This is my method with ground screws. I very much doubt the manufacturers recommend this, but it works. In the beginning, I either dig a small hole to get the tip in, or I just whack the post with a lump of timber to get it started. Next, I use a small chunk of wood and press down and twist. Once the threads are firmly in the ground, it's way easier. You just need to use some leverage and twist it to get the ground screw deep into the ground. Our ground is heavy clay, so things get very secure very quickly.
This morning I was hoping the wood would arrive to do this, and it didn't. But it turned out for the best in the end. You know, I put a little bit more time than I normally would into, you know, doing some of the basic stuff. So I've put some weed matting down, which I normally wouldn't bother with, and I took a bit more time really, and just marking everything out and laying it out. So in the end, it worked out pretty good.
Since the timber's still not here, I thought I'd get on with oiling the deck while I wait. So first a tidy up and then a quick sand down. The deck is fairly new, but I let it sit in the sun for a few months before putting any oil on. A new deck is hard to oil as the wood's still full of natural oils or treatment, so new oil won't soak in. You can tell when the wood is ready to accept oil as it kind of looks dry. I have a tendency to rush through easy jobs sometimes. Like I feel compelled to rush through oiling the deck so I can get back to building the lean-to. This is crazy when you think about it. What exactly would I be rushing towards if I kept doing this? Presumably my own death. Do I really think I would be happy the day I wake up and there is nothing left to do? All jobs have been completed. So it's with this thought in mind I focus on oiling the deck, and you know, I really did enjoy it. It's as if we hold on to this idea that we work hard our whole life in order to hit this moment of supreme relaxation and enjoyment, and yet we all know really that this doesn't exist. All we really have is this moment right now, so I might as well enjoy it. It feels good to get these beams bolted into place. This is a start of a structure, something I can sit roof joists on. The next morning, I'm up early. I want to get as much done as possible before it gets too hot. Since the deck is clear of clutter, now's a good time to get a second coat of oil down before I start work on the lean-to. It's nice and easy work that requires no brain power at all, so it's a good job to ease me into the day.
I've not got loads of time available, but I'm going to do a little bit of work on this and at least start the floor off. So the posts are already in place. You can see them, you know, along the line there and there. And I just need to set the bearer height. I think this is probably, the ground is lowest at this point, so I'll use that as a reference, get something nailed in there, and then work everything out and get it level off that.
I'm going to make everything based on the lengths of the timber supplied, so there is no wastage. The wood is all in 6 metre lengths, and I'm going to make the structure 4 metres long and 2 metres wide, so there'll be no wood that goes to waste. This bearer on the left is slightly higher than that on the right, so I need to give the ground screw a few turns to bring it down to the right level.
The good news is that the brackets are all in a really nice straight line and they are at the correct height. The bad news is the wood doesn't fit into them. You know, when you buy a 6x2 or a 4x2 or whatever, it's not actually 6 inches by 2 inches because it started out at that size at some point, but then it went through, you know, thicknesses, planers and whatever that would have taken all of these sharp edges off and smoothed the timber out just so it's easier for builders to handle, and the finished size is actually quite a bit smaller. However, I'm using rough sawn timber. The reason I'm using this, it's loads cheaper, but it is actually 6x2. In fact, it's even slightly bigger than that. And as a result, these posts here are designed for just kind of regular dimensional lumber, and this will not fit. Another one of these will not fit into here, which is a bit of a pain. So I need to remove about that much off the thickness of the bearers. Wicked. Nice. Yes, that works.
Put this shirt on to keep my arms out of the sun. The sun is pretty vicious down in this part of the world and is not helped by the lack of ozone. Interestingly, it was the same person that added CFCs to spray cans who realised cars ran more smoothly when lead was added to the petrol. He died before discovering that neither of these were a great idea for the ozone layer. One of these pieces of timber is warped like a banana, so I'm using a clamp to bring it back into straight.
This took slightly longer than expected, but that's fine. I'm really happy with this. It's a very solid base. We've got the bearers down, they're perfectly level, perfectly straight, and now I can just lay the floor joists on top of that, and we'll have a good floor. So I'm really happy about that. I could just keep going. I feel like a little kid with a Lego set, but I've got to stop. We're going away for Christmas. It's a busy time of year, so I better call it a day there. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week, or I might not see you next week because it's Christmas, people are traveling, I'm traveling, who knows. Thanks so much for watching.